Coming up, the first time Mortal Kombat did a fatality to its 2D bounds and ventures into the 3D realm and outside the fighting genre.
Take the fight out of the arena and defeat these enemies in their realm.
If you all turn to Appendix B...
Mr. Lim is here.
Mr. Lim?
He's been sent to troubleshoot the sales meeting.
Mr. Lim, come in.
Nick was just going through the sales figures, weren't you, Nick?
Yes. I was just saying that the quarterly sales are up by 12%.
But I see that overall sales for the fiscal year have actually fallen by 4%.
I can actually explain that.
Fight!
Sorry?
You, fight! Finish him! Fatality.
Mr. Lim, has head office had any more thoughts on our bonus structures for this year?
This broadcast is intended for
Space Ghost, 15 seconds till showtime.
AV broadcast or retransmission without express Get ready for a power trip.
Science fiction. Double feature. Dr. X will build a creature. At the late night double feature picture show.
You know, we Mortal Kombat fans do not have it easy. If this is your fighter of choice, the crowds around the more half-quarter circle inclined fighters will point and laugh at you for picking the least sophisticated choice. We had it pretty sweet with MK9 and X, then MK11 reset the timeline and no one was happy. And the rebuild in MK1 had people unhappy. All the colorful guest fighters in the world can't make up for the watchful eye of Warner Brothers breathing down the IP's neck, reportedly playing no small part in the premature content cutoff from Mortal Kombat 1. Now we have another movie coming out next month to get worked up about. The sequel to that piece of trash with the dumb OC lead that came out a few years ago. I know people look down on the PS2 era of the series, but it's hard not to think back at simpler times. Before big MK content creators morphed into alt-right chuds, before innovations like cameo fighters were means to go to war, before the storyline was penned by cowards that would create some god character to flip the table when they wrote themselves into a corner. We had whole lore pages of dense character retcons, and we fucking liked it. And you know what else we had? Mortal Kombat Shaolin monks. Mortal Kombat by this point was no stranger to beat-em-up spin-offs. Before this, we had spin-offs devoted to Sub-Zero and Jax, which are infamously lousy. But it's plain to see how the inspiration for MK platformers came about. The lore of these games is so broad and rich, you could make an offshoot piece in any aesthetic genre. A game focused on the Shaolin monks was a great call. Liu Kang and the rest of the White Lotus characters are weird because they're the big good force in a universe where good rarely wins. They do things by the book and often lose as a result. It takes a Scorpion or Johnny Cage with a little edge to usually win out against the big red buttons the MK rogues usually pull out. I don't think Liu and Kung were ever unpopular per se, but you can see some installments struggle to wedge them into Mortal Kombat's more ambivalent inclinations, especially as Liu Kang goes through so many outlandish evolutions as the games carry on. A spin-off focused around them is a neat artifact. where we see the Shaolin brothers in arms become sort of a literal double dragon duo in Mortal Kombat's first non-fighting game that wasn't tossed into a furnace by reviewers. In fact, it's pretty good. From the start, you can pick Liu Kang or Kung Lao, while available for unlock are Scorpion and Sub-Zero, as you play a narrative chronicling the events of Mortal Kombat 2 from the perspective of a Power Stone-style brawler, as opposed to a fighting game. Instead of one opponent up a tournament tower at a time, you often have to clear a whole crowd of Oni, demons, and/or putrid zombies, and keep on chugging into the next room. This allows for some fun ways to recontextualize Liu and Kung's moves. We've always known Kung Lao's spin that allows his hat to draw blood from any enemy via close shave, but it takes on a whole different effect on a crowd of mooks. The characters can grapple and tussle in different ways. Like larger enemies, you can hoist onto the shoulders of in order to ratatouille them into hazard. The monks as characters are idealized with their acrobatic agility, and it comes together in this game in ways you don't always get to see in a straight-up fighter. Swinging around, wall jumping, it just breathes new life into the monks as well-rounded combatants. Given this is a Mortal Kombat game, there's no small variety of ways to finish him, and mechanically it works like no other game. Every other MK treats fatalities like essentially a flashy cutscenic win pose, a way to cement your win beyond raising your fist in the air. In Shaolin Monks, combat builds up a fatality meter, allowing you to punch in a fatality combination and insta-kill any one foe with your character's trademark execution move. Crowds of enemies can get pretty overwhelming, so it's helpful to have a straight-up Control-Alt-Delete to red mist one of those pests and let you carry on with a bit of a reset. You can also manage this via the stage hazards in any given area of the game, faithful and often charading a stage fatality from the 2D Mortal Kombat games. Again, it's a nice way to take down those huge enemy hordes a peg, but it isn't without a price. Killing a foe via stage hazard doesn't award health pickups or experience points the way doing so with your own hands does, so it's ultimately to your detriment to play cheap that way too often. It's more of a last resort if you're low on health and need to end the fight quickly, and I love that you have choices that way, ones that cause small encounters and decisions to add up in the long term. Outside of that, the death traps littering each level are often used for puzzles and progression. Blood has always been some degree of currency in Mortal Kombat, but this takes it to a whole new level. Take, for example, the Soul Tomb level, where a door is locked by a torture device powered by a massive industrial fan. You have to throw Tarkatan warriors into the fan so their blood and guts jam it up and you can gain access to this area. Or this area near the Netherrealm where you have Sub-Zero's help. The Cryomancer kindly offers that if you kill enough enemies, he'll freeze their blood and create a nice, easy walkway you can traverse hazardous areas with. Mortal Kombat's reputation surrounds its over-the-top violence, but you have to hand it to this game for finding so many practical functions for it. It's refreshing that the game doesn't always spell out these solutions either. You're in these huge Metroidvania-adjacent labyrinths, and I found myself running in circles, not realizing I just had to empty more enemies into the molten steel or what have you to progress to the next stage. The biggest thing that's aged poorly with this game is instructions like these are often given with verbal cues. Your character will sometimes say out loud, these enemies can only be killed by electrocution, and these instances of dialogue aren't always subtitled. Even outside the conversation of accessibility that'd be without question today, as someone who will often play games on mute and let a podcast run in certain conditions, this confused me more than once, which is pretty much my fault, but worth noting. The more I think about it, there's one more elephant in the room with this game that comes off pretty antiquated, that being the story presentation and voice acting. Just take a listen.
Why did you do that?
Yes. Why did you do that? Sub-Zero is dead. He died after the Mortal Kombat tournament. Raiden told us Scorpion killed him. So who are you?
The man you saw die was my brother, and I am not even certain he is truly dead. I came here to avenge him, and believe that he may still yet live in one form or another.
Most of the characters are pretty laughably wooden, especially considering how the NRS era of Mortal Kombat has more recently had story modes souped up with serious quality around their cutscenes and characterization in a way no other fighting game has been able to emulate handily. So looking back on these humble beginnings is pretty sobering. I certainly don't expect Charlton Heston from Mortal Kombat characters dumping lore about Outworld, but holy moly, Shaolin Monk's voiceover is bad.
It is the only way to save Earth. We will be in competition with each other then. Shang Tsung's power will be divided between you. That will make him vulnerable and incapable of attacking Earth. Raiden, who is Shao Kahn?
Mortal Kombat didn't give their characters extensive dialogue very often, again, until the recent NRS games made this more frequent. They usually showed their personality in their animations, so on the rare occasion their voice did have to be more decisive, it took a really long time to hit a sweet spot that wasn't super awkward, and this is no exception. At least some of the more monstrous villain characters get to ham it up with some taunting.
Possessed. Shao Kahn is controlling him. Whatever hold Shao Kahn has on you, Master, fight it.
Thank you. Thank you for serving me so well.
Shang Tsung?
To be myself again. It is only right that this victory be mine, and mine alone.
We destroyed your soul tombs. You should not be this strong.
Is that what your master Raiden told you to do?
Those long streaks of puzzles and clearing crowds of enemies culminate in the game's real highlights, the boss battles. Here you encounter an iconic Mortal Kombat villain in a fight where you get a lot of freedom of moves and movement. I'm so glad these aren't the endure and wait kind of boss fight, where you have to find openings and weak spots and otherwise focus entirely on avoiding damage. Your opponent is always vulnerable even if they have their tells and react to certain moves with different counters. Tricks you'll find you can exploit pretty handily against Reptile won't work against Baraka, and while the AI itself isn't incredibly challenging on its own, it usually took me a try or two to win, just out of need to adjust my technique, as no two of these fights felt alike in a way that was pleasantly surprising. It could have been easy to stick to the Mortal Kombat formula and have a straightforward fighting engine, but facing Goro is a totally different task from facing Mileena. I don't want to undersell that I love Mortal Kombat in its simplest context, and I wouldn't trade those fighting games for anything, but it was really cool to see the genre shift this game takes to switch up the substance of these fights. The first boss encounters against Kitana, Mileena, and Jade all at once, the former of whom is under a brainwashing spell. You need to align Kitana with a rune that will cure the hypnosis that grips her, while fighting Jade and Mileena, who seek to keep her shackled. That alone is significantly more interesting context than most of the straightforward round 1 fights this series gives us. You might be a little alarmed to see Jade as an enemy in this game if you're more of a Mortal Kombat newcomer, but remember, she was at the mercy of Shao Kahn and pretty much had to do everything she was told before she was liberated by the good guys. It's a good thing Mortal Kombat recently established an infinite multiverse of different timelines too, because now I feel slightly less bad about how this fight ends. That's gotta hurt. Every boss fight ends in a fatality, too, whether you win or lose. Every boss does a game over fatality, leaving it tempting to lose at least once to each boss and see how your opponent takes you out to pasture. It's another nice way to pay homage to fatality being such a significant chunk of Mortal Kombat's history. Even though the graphics haven't aged terrifically, there's some downright cinematic staging and camera angles at play. Scorpion is known for his long-distance spear weapon, but this is is the only time to my recollection you can see him using it to swing around like Spider-Man. My favorite boss is probably Baraka, for how it encapsulates everything kinda special about this game. You encounter him guarding the Soul Tomb, where Shang Tsung is keeping his supply of departed innocent souls to siphon power off of. You wouldn't peg Baraka as such a resourceful guy, but when his usual blade attacks don't work, he resorts to lighting prisoner monks on fire and sending them flailing at you. Downright diabolical. As the fight progresses, Baraka makes it clear hand-to-hand moves can't penetrate his blades, meaning you have to use the swords to deal the last chunk of damage to his life bar. And you can't initiate your finisher against him until you impale both of the available swords in the stage into his body. It's after all this grueling fighting that the fatality that finishes Baraka isn't even dealt by the player, rather it's him growing so weak that he loses control of the souls in the tomb he was guarding. Poetic, brutal, and satisfying. Along with Baraka, you'll need to slay Jade, who's assisted by Mileena, Reptile, Goro, and Scorpion. These victories bestow you the 5 tournament tokens needed to have the final showdown in the famous Mortal Kombat 2 arena. That said, there's even more rivals waiting in the wings. Fulfilling certain parameters unlocks hidden battles against Ermac, Kano, and a rematch with Mileena to finish what she started alongside Jade. If you gun from point A to point B, you can make it to the final boss gauntlet pretty fast, but this game is littered with hidden goodies and battles. That's a good thing since I find the final boss to be kind of a bummer, so I try to delay that as much as I can. The last marathon of battles is Shang Tsung, Kintaro, and Shao Kahn all in a row, but it feels a little less worth it than the boss fights along the way. The enemies encountered beforehand had arcs to their fights, and different phases where you can tell the character is changing up their tactics. Each of these final boss characters behaves more like a single boss phase unto themselves, so their patterns are pretty simple, and they don't have as many interesting attacks as their predecessors. I think this is also because there's a real artificial difficulty made out of the fact that you're expected to fight all 3 of these bosses on one life bar with only a small health pickup in between to keep you going. I imagine this was done to compensate how tough this fight would be. The bosses themselves had to stay pretty simple, so you end up chipping away at these long-winded fights with very little room for experimentation. And with so little health recovery being the only danger, it all feels more cheap than it does challenging. And the good news is, this game is teeming with content past that initial campaign. So even if that final boss is disappointing, it's far from the end. You can start a new playthrough with a different character, each with their own special moves and fatalities. Playing co-op with a friend unlocks a whole extra category of puzzles that I can't comment on because I'm alone as I play this game for this video. And you can unlock a handful of boss characters and allies in the game's versus mode. Maybe the craziest unlockable on top of all of it comes from the smoke missions. You can find the classic Grey Ninja in the Living Forest and complete a handful of tasks, killing a certain number of enemies a certain way, or using certain moves to destroy certain terrains. And if you acquiesce everything Smoke asks of you, he will gift you a fully playable emulator of Mortal Kombat 2. This is all absurd minutia you can easily miss if you're not distinctly looking for it, and it's very in the spirit with the Midway arcade games and their cheekily enigmatic nature that helped put Mortal Kombat on the map. It harkens back to Mortal Kombat's arcade days, when the developers would rather famously hide extra characters by recoloring ninjas and locking their fights behind absurd conditions. Reptile has the distinction of being one of the first hidden characters in a fighting game, only found in the first Mortal Kombat if you achieve specifically minute conditions in a way that aroused debate face-to-face before widespread internet and game guides. Argument was spurned in many arcades and playgrounds as to how real this mysterious ninja was. The conditions to uncover Reptile and really every boss battle in this game feels like a love letter to that corner of Mortal Kombat's modus operandi in its classic era. The tasks before you to progress were often obscure. Shaolin Monks is a game I have a hard time imagining finishing tidily without a guide at your side, because you have to make mad dashes across huge lengths of interconnected levels, take a MacGuffin from one corner of the overworld and take it all the way to the other. But weird labyrinthian logic was always something Mortal Kombat loved to traffic in. When you die, you get these odd little game over hints, some of which are actually helpful tips and some are totally cryptic nonsense, to the point of referencing characters that aren't even in this game. But that has to be the same fingerprints of the same Ed Boon that caught on to people's awareness of secret ninja characters in the old 2D Mortal Kombats, and intentionally muddied the waters even more by making up a purple ninja called Rain as a bit and putting him in trailers for Mortal Kombat 3, which is a game he was not in. Maybe this was all a lesson in it looking where one doesn't always, off the beaten path, giving things a chance even if their appearance is deceptive. Maybe the new Mortal Kombat movie will be good, and maybe I will like Cole Young in it. Well, let's maybe not get crazy.
Continue.